back to Exploit Security. I am your host, Scott Anderson, and today we're going to be doing a dive into some more Capture the Flag challenges. Now, what I really like about Capture the Flag is it helps build upon those required skills and that critical thinking pattern needed to be successful as a penetration tester and just as a cybersecurity professional in general. So if you do like the content, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. Hey, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to Exploit Security. As always, I'm your host, Scott, and today we are going to be diving into Leviathan 2. So Leviathan is hosted on OverTheWire. I also have some great content for OverTheWire Bandit and OverTheWire Nautus on my channel as well. Those are a little bit easier in terms of challenges, so if you have not had the opportunity to work your way through those, strongly encourage that you do that first. I also already have the video content from working from level 0 to 1 of Leviathan and then from 1 to 2. So if you haven't seen those and you haven't been able to pass those, definitely check those out as well. Full disclosure before we jump into it, this is going to be a solution-based video, which means by the end of this video, you are going to see the solution for Leviathan 2. So if you have not tried to solve this on your own already, strongly encourage that you give that a shot, as that's where you're going to get most of your value from, learning to find that solution on your own. With that being said, if you're stuck, you can't get past it, you are in the right spot. There is still value to gain, from watching videos like these. As long as you're kind of absorbing the process, the workflow, and you're searching some of those keywords that you don't know or don't understand. Also, before we jump into it, usually I like to jump in and try to solve and find the flag prior to me making the video, but due to just kind of some of the work constraints, we're going to be raw dogging this today, and I'm going to be trying to solve it on this video without a first-time solve. So if I'm a little bit slower as I'm kind of working through the thought process instead of just explaining it, I do apologize. Hopefully this video does not stretch in too long. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. We're going to list the contents of the directory, and we are going to do it in long format, which is going to show those permissions. And we are also going to do the TAC-A, which is just listing those hidden files as well. We can see right off the bat, similar to Leviathan 2, we have a file here. We have the ability to execute as Leviathan 2. The file is called print file, and it does have a set UID. So that means that anything we run is actually going to be ran as Leviathan 3. So let's just go ahead and let's just cat it. Actually, it's probably going to be non-human readable. So let's just run strings and then print file. Again, you can do some keyword searching. This is particularly helpful when you're doing static malware analysis. But in this case, we're just going to look at some of the keywords in here. We can see there is a usage. It is saying the name of the file name is the variable. You can't have that file, just strings. It looks like it is using cat. So let's just go ahead, clear it out, have a clean slate, and let's run print file by itself. There we go. We see that usage pop up where it's telling us to include a file name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do make directory. And I like to make it inside of the temp folder. And then I like to just name it after my handle, which is CyberMonkey. And then we will give it a follow-up command, and we will do echo CyberMonkey test, and then we will push it into the directory we just created and call it test.txt. That should work. Cool. And then just do a proof of concept. We will do temp CyberMonkey test.txt. Oh, I see what I did wrong. So let me correct myself. So I need to make sure that I am pointing that echo into this location. And since it already created, that chain command is going to act a little bit funny. So what we'll do is echo CyberMonkey test and then temp cybermonkey test.txt. I'm just going to go up. There we go. All right, so we now have that cybermonkey test within that test.txt within temp/cybermonkey. We'll go ahead and clear that out. And let's just give that a shot and see what happens. So we're going to call print file. And then again, we're going to point it to that file we just created. Okay, all right, so we are able to read that file with print file. So it looks like it's just doing a cat of the file just from some of those keywords we saw when we ran strings. So let's think this through. So the file is being ran with the set UID of Leviathan 3. So let's see what happens if we just try to run print file and then the password file for Leviathan 3. And maybe we'll just get an easy solve. So let's just give that a shot. So the password file for Leviathan is etc Leviathan _pass. And in this case, we want to get a look at Leviathan 3. Leviathan 3. And we get a printout for you can't have that file, which is interesting. Because in theory it is running set UID as Leviathan 3. So let's try to do this with ltrace. So we're going to work through the exact same thing, and ltrace is just going to show us the libraries being called within that process. Very similar to Leviathan 2. So ltrace print file, and let's just start off with that temp. That looks right. And right away, we can see that it is using access function. So my C is not the sharpest, so I normally have to Google search things a lot, which is to be expected. I think different people have different strengths in other places. This is definitely an error I can get stronger on. So let's see. In C, the access function is used to check whether a file or directory exists and if the calling process has the specified permissions to access it. All right, so cool. And then you can see here it's using this sn printf function. Let me just see what that one's doing. Pretty self-explanatory, but I like to look it up anyways. Standard library function that is used to print the specified string. So similar to cat or print if you're thinking of Python. And it calls out the file. What's interesting is it doesn't fully complete it right there. Not a big issue. That just could be the printout of ltrace. You can see that it's using cat to display the file in question or to cat the file in question. It is using get EUID, system cat, cybermonkey test. All right, cool. So then let's try to run the exact same thing, except for on Leviathan 3. So we are not able to access it, as we already saw. So let's try this. So let's go ahead and cd into the directory we created. And then we are going to create a file. I'm thinking. Like I said, we're doing this a bit raw, so I do apologize as I'm working through my thought process. So let's go off the assumption that access is actually checking our actual user ID, right? Our real user ID, as opposed to what the process is running, which is Leviathan 3, right? We can kind of piece that together. So what this means is that it is checking our actual access. So when access function runs, it says we are Leviathan 2, which in this case we are, and it's not saying we're Leviathan 3, even though it does have that set UID, right? So that's the best way I'm understanding this. So it means we're not going to have that permission to view it. So let's just kind of play around. Let's try this. So we're going to create another file called new. And essentially what that slash means is there's a space in the name. So touch is going to create that file. If I do ls, you can see right there, new test.txt. It looks like it could be separate files. In this case, it is just one file with a space in between, right? So if we were trying to do cat new test.txt, you're going to get a standard error. And it's just going to say new doesn't exist, text.txt doesn't exist, right? But if we were to do cat new, that slash again, text, I meant test, but whatever. There you go. Test. I keep making some rookie mistakes today, guys. There you go. So we can actually view that file because we're indicating there is a space in between the file name. Similarly, you can do quotations and like that, right? And it's going to tell, it's just going to include everything within that quotation. So we're basically identifying that as one file name. So let's do echo, just so we can have a little something. This is a test. We're going to append it into that text file we just created. We're going to cat it just to show you what it looks like. There you go. We now have it there. So we are going to call print file from our current location. So we'll run it like that. And then we are going to do, let's see, new test.txt. And let's just see what happens. Interesting. Really interesting. Hold on. Interesting. Okay. So you can see we get a standard error initially, and it says that bin cat new no such file or directory, but then it actually looks in and it cats our test.txt, right? So that's definitely interesting. So let me think this through. So to me, that is telling me that the cat within that print file is essentially reading these as two unique files when we drop it. It's not reading it as one file despite the quotations. let's just see, maybe I'm wrong. So let's try it like this just to see what happens. Yeah, so it's reading both as two separate files, and it's trying to cap both. That definitely sounds like it could be a possible issue. So let's run ltrace on that and see what that is like. So again, ltrace print file. Since we are not in that directory, we're just going to point at the directory where print file is. We'll do quotations here. New test.txt, close out that quotation and run it. You can see access function runs on new test.txt. There it is, right here. So it is reading that we just tried to cat essentially two files. Right, so just to show you what I mean, if I were to run cat new test.txt and then test.txt, it will cat both files. So in this case, it's trying to cat those as two separate files. And it's only reading test.txt because new doesn't exist within this directory. So let me think. Let me look up something. Symbolic link. So I wonder what happens. My thinking is if we create a symlink between a file and the Leviathan 3 password file, and we point it at the file that we create, since there's a symbolic link and there's a set UID, would it be able to call the Leviathan 3 password file? All right. Let's try that. Yeah, let's give that a shot. So touch, and we're just going to call this monkey for the file. So now we have three files within the directory. We have monkey, new, space, test.txt, and test.txt. And then if I create that symlink, I don't know if this is going to work. It should, right? Because access function is using our real user ID, which is Leviathan 2, but it's a set UID on for Leviathan 3. So the program itself is running as Leviathan 3, but access is checking our real user ID, I believe, just based off the testing we were doing. So if I point the symbolic link from Leviathan pass, right? And this is the password file for Leviathan 3. So if we were able to cat this, we would actually get the password for Leviathan 3 itself. And then if I go temp cybermonkey and then point it there, making a mistake. Okay, let's try this one then. I think the file can exist, and I think it creates the file in the process. So let's try that again. ls, I'm just going to highlight this so I don't have to type it. And then we're just going to go temp cybermonkey test again. All right, and then do ls la. Cool. So we can see that, yes, there is a link there. So if I run print file, excuse me, we're not in that current directory, so I'm going to point to it. I run print file, and then I point it at temp cybermonkey test again. If this works, we should see the password for Leviathan 3. Again, let's just see, and then I'll explain it the best way I'm kind of understanding it. Okay, so that did not work. Give me a second, guys. I'm just thinking it through in my head. Can't have that fun. All right, so let's try this then. So we know that cat is reading them as two independent files. So I wonder if test again. Think. All right, Pat is two separate files. All right, so let's try this then. Reading as two separate. I didn't do it when we did test again. Let's try this then. And then we'll point it back there. I know we're on to something. I can pass. And then Leviathan 3, temp, cybermonkey, and then two separate files. All right, so this is one file. Let's try this. So this is one file. So we're going to see if we can kind of utilize that little bug in there for the program itself. So we know that when we run it print file on new space test.txt, it attempts to read it as two independent files. So what if we create a symlink for Leviathan 3 at a file called new? Yep, and then we have that there, right? So it's reading it as two separate files. So then what if we point print file at new test.txt? And since it's reading it as independent files, let's see. All right, let me see that with ltrace. I need to understand that a little bit in my head. I'm kind of piecing it together, but I'm not fully comprehending it. Text. All right, so we can see the access function being ran, and we can see capping ran. Okay, got it. Now I'm understanding. All right, cool. So the access function is running as the real ID. So the real ID in this case is Leviathan 2. Now you can see here when the access function runs, it actually calls out the name of the file within quotations, right? So it is identifying this as one file since it's within that quotation, right? So you can see that there. And in this case, we created this. Leviathan 2 created this file, right? We did that. We did it early on in the beginning. Now we can see here that when cat is running, it's not running this within a quotation. So basically we are exploiting the program itself, right? There's a little bug in there that doesn't properly handle all of this. And the reason why is access is running it as the real ID, which is Leviathan 2. But cat, since that file, and just to show you what I mean, excuse me. Since that file has a set UID, cat is being ran as Leviathan 3. So we're just using this to our favor, right? So in this case, we have a file called new space test.txt created by Leviathan 2. And when access runs, it's using real ID. So it's saying, does this file exist? And do you have permission as Leviathan 2 to access this file? And you can see here it's within quotations. So access function is understanding that it is just one file with a space in between. And it's saying, yes, Leviathan 2 does have the ability to run this and to view this and to access it, right? So then it goes ahead and proceeds past that check. Now cat is being ran as Leviathan 3. We can see that because of the set UID. So since it's running as Leviathan 3 and it's running cat, the mistake here is it identifies these as two separate and unique files, right? So one file would be new and the other file would be test.txt. In this case, we created a symlink on new and we linked it to the password for Leviathan 3. So what it does is it says, okay, cat new, and it's running as Leviathan 3 because the access check already ran. So it's saying cat new, and it's doing that. And then it's doing cat test.txt, which it's doing that. And you can see that because of when we run print file right here. So you can see it here on that printout. So it's actually using that symlink. It's reading Leviathan 3 with cat as Leviathan 3. These are the credentials, and then it's following up and it's reading that test.txt. So in this case, we just utilized a weak program, right? They just kind of built in a vulnerability within there, and we were able to capture the password for Leviathan 3. So generally speaking, really good challenge. I actually kind of got stumped for a second as well. Definitely shows some of my weaker areas I need to build on. Hopefully my explanation of that made sense. If it did not, let me know in the comments section below and I'll try to see if I can break it down a little bit more. But yeah, really fun challenge. I'm starting to really like Leviathan, hosted on OverTheWire. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you have questions, recommendations, or just some additional insight, by all means, feel free to drop that in the comment section below. And apologies for kind of taking my time on this video. It went up to 30 minutes. So apologies there. Like I said, I was just kind of jumping into this raw. I'll make sure that when I do drop Leviathan 4, I go through and I solve it ahead of time. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. And I will catch you in the next video. Later, everyone.